He can't believe what he's hearing. He stands before the party he once called family, and they look about as happy as a wet cat. Our boy is understandably confused by the cold reception, but then a quiet, knowing smile appears. He reflects on his place among these powerful heroes. He was just a swordsman, not a living legend, and in their eyes he was a liability. Still, he'll never forget the journey they shared together, and it's because of those memories that he'll leave with no regrets. He tries to make this easy for them, but the cat girl is clearly distraught. Our boy is confused by her reaction, and she's not the only one who seems upset. The elf mage insists she wanted him by their side, so if that's true, why is he being kicked out? He begs them to stop toying with his feelings. His outburst hangs heavy in the air, and the leader finally admits that skill-wise, he's replaceable. The winged mage insists their shared past means more than that, and that this decision is an insult to their bond. But the leader simply calls our boy a fool. The blonde healer chimes in, saying their journey was a joy. He stares, caught off guard by their support. So if that's true, then why is this happening? Why do they all look like they're at a funeral? He argues that he was never a burden to them, and yet he's the one being thrown away. The leader finally steps forward to give the real reason, but he's cut off by the arrival of Prince Margules. The royal enters with an air of solemn duty, and the leader drops the bombshell. The prince is his replacement. He explains that the final battle is upon them, and while armies will fight, only 6 heroes can face the Demon King. The prince vows that he will be the one to protect them. He tells our boy to rest easy and just wait for their return. How incredibly generous. The condescending words cut deeper than any blade. And our boy finally snaps, demanding to know what he's supposed to wait for. The leader repeats that he is not to join them in the fight. She declares that they will be the ones to return alive. And the words finally begin to sink in. She explains that they must risk their lives to save the world. But she admits with a clenched fist that in the chaos of battle, their spirits might break. And that is why he must stay behind for their sake. He stares, the pieces finally clicking into place. And he smiles, realizing he's not their liability. He's their anchor, their reason to come home. He looks at them, truly understanding for the first time, and he sees not pity, but a quiet pride in their eyes. He can only scratch his head, a little embarrassed by it all, because deep down he admits he always knew the truth, that even when he felt like a burden, they saw him as family. He remembers all the whispers they must have endured for his sake. Other adventurers questioning why he was even on the team. He overheard them offering to find a better replacement. Because random tavern guys are always the best talent scouts. But they always chose him, Kazudo. He remembers the day the leader first reached out her hand. He remembers all the times he felt out of place. But she always kept him by her side. He knows she was too kind to ever say it directly. But he understood the truth all the same. They didn't want him to die a meaningless death. And he knows her words came from the heart. They needed him to be their final bastion of hope. And he feels like the luckiest man alive to have known them. But even so, the fact remains that without him, their power is incomplete. He wonders what he can possibly do for them now. His little companion, Ash, lets out a sleepy yawn. And looking at the tiny creature, an idea forms. He realizes there's only one path forward for their sake. There is one last gift he can give them. He turns to the party and tells Ash to go with them. He reminds the leader, Romina, of her faith in the goddess of bonds, and that in their time of need, that faith will be rewarded. Romina stares, completely baffled by his request. He smiles, revealing Ash was the true source of his strength all along. He explains that Ash is a holy beast, blessed by the goddess, and that he was only ever borrowing its divine power. He tells Romina that since she's a true believer, she can do the same. He admits that half of what he just said was a lie. But the power Ash holds is very, very real. The little creature looks heartbroken at the thought of leaving him. Kazudo looks at his companion, understanding its reluctance. But he insists that with Ash, they can face the Demon King. He reaches out, explaining that by separating, Ash will become the final miracle they need to survive. He asks Ash to take care of them in his place. A sad, knowing look passes between them. The little creature's eyes well up with tears, but it quickly hardens its resolve and leaps onto Romina's shoulder with purpose. Talk about a dramatic transfer of power. Kazudo admits that his heart aches at their parting, but he needs Romina to make their pact official. He asks her to formally expel him from the party. The elf mage looks on in stunned silence, but the cat girl seems to understand his sacrifice. Romina can barely bring herself to say the words, but Kazudo just gives a sad, accepting smile. The crest on his hand begins to glow, before dissolving into nothing. And just like that, he's officially no longer a member. He remembers being kicked out of parties before, but he admits this farewell hurts far more than any other. The cat girl tries to lighten the mood, insisting it's not goodbye forever. He can only offer a quiet agreement. And the winged mage promises they'll see him again, but Kazudo can't bring himself to agree. No, he won't let them see him like this. He's already been kicked out, all that's left is to walk away. So he puts on a brave face and decides to be blunt. He tells them he was never strong enough to face the Demon King anyway. The cat girl is absolutely livid at his words. She tries to rush forward, demanding to know how he could say that. The entire party can only stare in disbelief, but Kazudo holds his pained smile, trying to make this easier. He admits it's a cruel fate, but he'll have to take his chances out there alone. He tells them that while they're off saving the world, he has no idea if he'll even survive out here. He wanted to leave quietly, but since this is the end, he's going to say what's on his mind. He tells them to forget about him and his uncertain future. The winged mage fires back, asking if he thinks they'll lose. The elf mage can only watch, heartbroken by his words. And the cat girl insists they will defeat the Demon King. Romina remains silent, her back turned to him, and with all his heart, he screams for them to come back alive. He tells them that to him, this party was the best thing that ever happened. He admits there were hard times, but he'll never forget the joy of their journey. He turns, trying to hide his own tears, but he sees that they're all crying too. Apparently the waterworks are contagious. He scolds them, saying he's the only one allowed to be a mess. The winged mage tells him to find them after the battle, and the cat girl promises to praise him when they reunite. Romina declares that he was always part of the best party. He offers one last gentle smile, and thanks them for everything they've shared. Romina's heart sinks as he turns to leave. She cries out his name, but he doesn't look back. He just raises a hand in a final, silent farewell, leaving his former comrades completely shattered. The door closes behind him with a heavy thud. Talk about a dramatic exit. And with that, he knows this is truly goodbye. On the other side of the door, they can only stare, as Romina clasps her hands, praying for his safety. He walks away, his final plea echoing in the empty hall. And just like that, Kazudo was gone from their lives. Romina stands there, a strange emptiness washing over her. She looks at her friends and wonders why she's crying, but they can only stare back, lost in the same sorrow. She touches her cheek, confused by the tears she can't explain. Meanwhile, Kazuto finds himself outside, feeling a similar pang of loss. He can only offer a bittersweet smile to the empty air. He realizes the truth. He's been erased from their memories, and the weight of that sacrifice finally hits him. He lies awake, lost in the silence. He recalls a dream he'd rather forget. 6 months have passed since he left Romina's party. In that time, they successfully defeated the Demon King, and thanks to Ash's power, they did it without a single casualty. When Kazudo heard the news, he felt both relieved and lonely. He knew they no longer had him to come home to. Meanwhile, Prince Margles was crowned the new king. Talk about a convenient career move. And Romina now lives by his side in the royal palace. As rumors of their marriage spread, Kazuto continues his journey alone. He hears tales of his other former comrades' heroic deeds. But after the battle, there was no word from the blonde healer, Lute. He's only heard that she's safe and sound, which is a relief. He figures a girl with her unique background is probably just wandering, as one does. And then there's the matter of Ash. He reveals that Ash was the goddess of bonds, who returned to the heavens after the final battle. When they first met, she asked him to help restore people's faith in her. And with the Demon King defeated, that wish was granted. Kazuto smiles, feeling his purpose in this world has been fulfilled. But he notes that the power he borrowed from her is still very much active. But his quiet reflection is suddenly shattered. A massive fang tiger charges through the woods. It's bearing down on a fallen merchant and his cart. Kazuto's hand rests on his hilt, ready to draw. He unleashes a vacuum blade just as the beast leaps. The powerful slash connects in a flash of light, and the creature is brought down in a single strike. The merchant is stunned, but Kazuto explains it's a power from Ash, a unique ability known as the Strength of Bonds. He reveals he can use the skills of his former comrades, so he's a one-man party now. He thanks the cat girl, Feline, for the shocking display of power. But that's not his only gift. There's also the Blessing of Bonds, a power that passively strengthened his allies just by being near them, an ability he has absolutely no use for now. Talk about awkward. But these incredible powers came with a terrible price. The first part of the curse, he can never return to his home world. He's made peace with that, but the second curse is far worse. The moment he officially left the party, he was completely erased from their minds. A curse so absolute it wiped his existence from everyone he'd ever known. And so the day he left Romina's party, and the promise that he was their reason to return, was completely and utterly erased from their minds. In the end, he no longer had a place to call home. He knows there's no chance they're even looking for him now, but his quiet journey is suddenly halted by a sharp command. He peeks around the corner, realizing he's finally reached a town. The guard stops him, asking to see his guild card for entry. He presents the card, revealing his name, Kazuto Kiramine. The guard notes he's using his real name, a choice Kazudo now finds a little awkward. The guard thanks him, handing back his card, and a woman at the gate welcomes him to the town of Marvel. Kazudo seems a little taken aback by the friendly greeting. He looks out over the sprawling city below. He's been traveling far to avoid the capital. And the heroes he once called his family. He watches another group of adventurers pass by, and admits that even after 6 months he still feels lonely. Turns out being a one-man party isn't all it's cracked up to be. Back in the present, the merchant he saved signs off on a document. He's so grateful, he offers Kazudo a job as his guard for the return trip. But Kazudo politely turns down the offer. He makes his way through the streets of Marvel, and after getting directions from a local, he finds himself at the Adventurers Guild. The place is as loud and chaotic as he expected. He notices a strange crowd gathered in the back, but he pushes past them to the reception desk. He's here to report the completion of his quest, because even heroes have to do paperwork. The receptionist takes his documents and guild card, and places the report on a seal for verification. The seal glows, magically confirming the details of his report. Kazudo can't help but marvel at this world's blend of magic and modern systems. The receptionist confirms everything is in order, and slides over a pouch containing his reward. He smiles, satisfied with the 2 gold coins he's earned. He's really rolling in it now. But just as he's about to leave, he hesitates. He asks about the crowd gathered in the back of the guild hall. The receptionist sighs, clearly tired of this particular question. She explains that a strange quest request has everyone buzzing. Kazudo's interest is immediately piqued by her words. She explains the quest is open to any rank, but there's one very specific condition. The applicant must be what's known as a lost namer. Kazudo is, to put it mildly, completely lost. The term refers to a very particular type of adventurer, a mysterious figure who brings a party great success, only for them to fall apart the moment he leaves. Talk about a niche job market. And Kazuto realizes she's describing him exactly. He figures that after this happened a few times, rumors and legends must have started to spread. He knows it's all because of Ash's blessing and the curse that followed. The receptionist is surprised he seems to fit the description. She adds that the quest details are confidential until the client verifies his identity. Kazudo can't help but ask who the client is. The receptionist reveals it's a legendary L-rank adventurer, a name he recognizes all too well, Lute, the healer. The crowd murmurs, confirming that the hero herself posted the request. But Kazudo wonders why she'd be looking for a lost namer. He knows the curse erased him from her memory, so this can't be a coincidence. He suddenly imagines her being punished for all the parties she's inadvertently ruined. The receptionist just stares, completely baffled by his train of thought. Talk about a wild leap in logic. He asks if he needs some kind of proof to take the quest. She explains that for now it's just a self-declaration. So he confirms that he's eligible to take the quest. He's stunned that it's based on self-declaration alone. His mind drifts back to Lute, the healer from his old party. He remembers her unpredictable personality. You never knew what she was thinking. And he feels like he, the forgotten one, has no right to interfere. But still, a part of him hesitates. He wonders why she's doing this, especially after vanishing without a trace. He recalls the warmth of their time together on the road. The receptionist's questioning gaze pulls him back to the present, and with his mind made up, he asks her to sign him up for the quest. He remembers the chaos that always followed in his wake. Parties falling apart, blaming him for not trying hard enough. He was always given an ultimatum, before being told to just get out. He glances back at the crowd, all buzzing about the legendary Lost Namer. A title he never asked for, and a reputation he can't escape. He recalls a specific memory of fighting alongside Lute. She had accused him of being just as cold as the others, and had told him he should just leave. Ouch. A painful thought begins to form in his mind. He imagines Lute, knowing she's completely forgotten him. He pictures her dismissing him, saying he couldn't possibly be the one she's looking for. But he can't let that happen, because there's something he needs to know. He grits his teeth, his resolve hardening. He turns back to the receptionist and asks why Lute would need a lost namer. The receptionist seems a little caught off guard by his directness. She admits that she has no idea what the hero's reasons are. Well, that's helpful. Kazudo wonders why Lute would seek out a figure that's little more than a legend. but he knows that adventurers are drawn to a good mystery, and that's exactly why he's here today. He's led into a private room where a familiar face awaits. Lute gives him a dismissive look, unimpressed by his presence. She tells him she can't share the quest details with just anyone. Apparently, curious guy from the lobby doesn't make the cut. Kazudo asks if only a true lost namer can hear the story, but Lute admits she's desperate enough to rely on a mere rumor. She scoffs at her own titles, calling them completely meaningless. She recalls how everyone credited Romina and Ash for the victory, but confesses that with her current power, she couldn't do it again. Kazudo can only stare, completely baffled by her confession, because her words imply the impossible, that she has to defeat the Demon King. Lute's expression hardens, her words sharp. She tells him this is none of his concern, and that if he doesn't want to die, he should just leave. Talk about a warm welcome. Kazudo can only stare, trying to understand her words, but her gaze remains fixed and unyielding. He admits he can't grasp the true meaning of her words, but he can't ignore the pain in his former comrade's eyes. He takes a determined step forward. He reminds her that their strength came from their bonds, and that if she's struggling, she should rely on her friends. Lute scoffs, asking what he could possibly know about her. Kazudo admits that he doesn't know anything, but he can clearly see that she's given up. She snaps, telling him to be quiet, and summons a shadowy beast to attack him. Well, that escalated quickly, but Kazudo calmly dispels it with a single motion. Lute stares in disbelief, asking if he's trying to die. He replies that he has no intention of dying, not when he still has hope. She demands to know why he's getting in her way, and he simply says he can't just leave her like this. She demands to know what he's really after. Is it status? Is it fame? Or is he just another adventurer looking for gold? She's really running through the standard RPG motivations here. But Kazudo's answer is simple. Her smile. Lute is completely stunned into silence. He tells her that he remembers everything. He remembers how she'd always tease him, and the genuine joy in her laughter. But the person standing before him now is a complete stranger. She asks him for his name. He simply replies, Kazuto. Lute gives a cold, dismissive acknowledgement, and a chilling smile spreads across her face. Kazudo can only stare, completely caught off guard, as she summons a massive dragon behind her. Guess the small talk is over. She demands that if he won't give up, then he must show her a reason to hope. Kazudo grips his sword, bracing himself for the fight. He can't help but smile, realizing the true depth of her resolve. He recalls that in all their time together, he and Lute had never once crossed blades, but he knows her true strength from watching her fight, and he wonders if he truly has what it takes to win. The dragon prepares a blast that could easily kill him, but he knows that if he backs down now, he can't give her hope. He grips his sword, vowing to show her what she's forgotten. Lute screams his name, telling him to be ready for what's coming, and he roars back, accepting her challenge without hesitation. He charges forward, ready to face his former friend head-on. Lute's face darkens, her attacks growing wild and desperate. He can't understand why she's pushing herself this far. The dragon unleashes a devastating blast of energy, an attack commanded by Lute herself. It's a torrent of pure destructive power, but Kazudo stands his ground, unflinching. The attack connects with a massive explosion, but he's already moved, dodging it with ease. Show off. Lute stares in disbelief, questioning how a C-rank adventurer could be so fast. She prepares her next attack, ready to escalate things further. She commands her beast to tear him apart, and it unleashes a volley of scorching claws. Lute is confident he won't be able to withstand it, but Kazudo's blade begins to glow with borrowed power. He counters with a massive slash of his own. Lute can only stare, completely shocked. She recognizes the technique as a vacuum blade. Apparently she's seen it before. She admits he's skilled but insists it's not enough. The attacks clash in a brilliant flash of light. As the dragon unleashes another devastating barrage, Lute can't believe what she's seeing. He unleashes another technique, a blade of absolute zero. She questions how a swordsman could wield such complex magic, and his attack shatters her beast's claws with ease. Kazudo pushes forward, breathing hard but not backing down, because the woman before him is nothing like the Lute he remembers. He recalls her playful nature, her easy smile, and he can't stand seeing that light completely gone from her eyes. He screams that he wants to help her, to be her strength. And even though she's forgotten him, she wants to understand. He declares that to him, she's still a precious comrade. He raises his sword, pouring all his conviction into the blade. Lute is stunned by the raw emotion in his voice. With a final, desperate roar, he brings his sword down with blinding speed and unleashes a single devastating flash of power. The dragon faces the attack head-on, but the beast is completely overwhelmed by the strike, and in an instant it's utterly annihilated. Guess that settles that. Lute can only stare, her mind reeling from the impossible sight. A small, knowing smile spreads across Lute's face. She congratulates him on a job well done for a C rank. Kazudo can only pant, shocked that he actually pulled it off. But her expression shifts, the fight clearly not over. She admits that unfortunately for him, the claws he just destroyed were merely a distraction. As a dark power erupts from the ground beneath her, shadowy tendrils burst forth, trapping him from all sides. Guess she had a backup plan. She unleashes a final, all-consuming explosive attack, and Kazudo realizes he's walked right into her true trap. Lute stands calmly as the explosion consumes him. She turns to leave, convinced the lost namer wasn't here after all. She whispers a quiet apology to Romina, and gives one last regretful glance over her shoulder. But her eyes suddenly widen in complete shock, because through the smoke, Kazudo is still standing. She can't believe he survived the blast. Her mind flashes back to another, more devastating explosion, a memory of a battle she thought was hopeless, a time when she felt the lost namer was impossible to find. Lute can only stare in utter disbelief. He's breathing hard, but he's alive. And in that moment, a memory surfaces, a time when he was just a swordsman, and he'd used a technique he'd long forgotten. He grips his sword, his resolve hardening. He unleashes a spinning defensive maneuver, but he realizes he's only delayed the inevitable, because Lute is already preparing her next move. The shadowy tendrils ignite into a fiery barrage. The fiery tendrils converge on him in a massive blast. Kazudo's eyes widen in a moment of pure panic. He's completely blinded by the searing light of the explosion. But in that split second, he makes his move. He summons a magic barrier, a power from the strength of bonds. Lute can only stare as her attack is completely nullified. She questions how he could have possibly defended against it. Kazudo admits that if he didn't know her moves, he'd be a goner. Talk about having inside information. Lute's expression hardens, her patience clearly wearing thin. She accuses him of holding back, of treating her with pity. She demands to know why he's still standing. She remembers him as someone who was always kind and at ease. But now she can't understand what he's just done. Kazuto is completely drained, but her words hit him hard. He grits his teeth, frustrated by her accusation. He shouts that he wasn't holding back, he just didn't want to give up. He admits that what he truly wanted to see was her smile. He suddenly freezes, realizing his mistake. The silence that follows is absolutely deafening, because he just spoke to a legendary hero like an old friend. Talk about a Freudian slip. He slumps to the ground, realizing he got way too familiar. Lute clears her throat, preparing to address him more formally. But Kazudo rises, insisting it's too soon for her to lose hope. Her serious expression begins to crack, before she erupts into a full-blown laugh. She playfully asks which personality is his real one. Our boy is understandably confused by the sudden 180. She tells him to drop the honorifics and just be himself. She admits that while he's a C rank, his conviction is legendary, and he's left completely flustered by her sudden playful praise. He can only offer a relieved smile, because this is the Lute he remembers. She tells Kazudo she has a request for him. She wants him to accompany her to the royal capital, Rodomi, but she refuses to share the details of the quest just yet. She admits it's a dangerous and selfish thing to ask. Kazudo hesitates, knowing exactly who is in the capital. Romina, Feline, and the others, a family who no longer knows his name. Talk about an awkward reunion, but he knows he has no choice but to accept. Lute offers him her staff, a gesture of trust. She explains that she needs a certain kind of power. Kazudo's mind races, trying to connect the dots. He asks the unthinkable, is the Demon King still alive? Lute quickly corrects him, confirming Romina's victory. Glad we cleared that up. So then why does she need the power to defeat him again? She asks him to follow her without any more questions, promising to explain everything once they reach the capital. The pain in her eyes is impossible to ignore, and Kazudo knows he can't just walk away from this. He offers a small, accepting smile. He tells her not to worry about him. She explains that's exactly why she came here, and her expression softens into a gentle smile. She admits that this whole situation is strange. She asks if they've met somewhere before, because for some reason, he feels incredibly familiar. Kazudo can only stare, completely stunned. He stammers that a C rank like him would never cross paths with a hero. Lute seems to accept his logic, though she looks a little confused. But a seed of doubt has clearly been planted in her mind, and our boy is not handling the pressure well. He wonders if something can remain, even after memories are gone. Lute tells him they don't have much time and will leave in the morning. She reaches out her hand, formally asking him to join her, and Kazudo can't help but smile at the gesture. He quickly agrees, ready to set off on their journey. But a sudden realization hits him like a ton of bricks. Lute just stands there, a knowing look on her face, and a dragon suddenly appears, scooping him up without warning. Talk about first-class travel. It takes off into the sky, leaving Lute behind. As Kazudo hangs on for dear life, completely unprepared for the ride, she gives him a bright smile, telling him not to fall behind. And she helps him up, a much more conventional way to travel. Their hands meet, sealing the pact between them. The next day, their journey officially begins. They set off by carriage for the royal capital, Rodomi. On the road, Lute acts as cheerful and carefree as ever. But Kazudo can't shake a feeling of unease, because in quiet moments he sees a deep sorrow in her expression, a look that fills him with a growing sense of dread. He can only wonder what this quest truly entails. And so, 1 week passes on the road. Lute cheerfully points out their destination, but Kazudo can only wonder why she's searching for a lost namer. He remembers that to find the answer he had to pass her trial, and now they've arrived in Rodomi, a land of memories, and the weight of that return is etched on his face. The carriage ride is filled with a heavy, awkward silence. You could cut the tension with a dull butter knife. He notices that Lute has been lost in thought the entire day. He recalls her promise to explain everything upon their arrival, and now they've finally reached the royal capital. He can't help but feel a little tense, knowing the explanation is coming. But their quiet ride is interrupted by a crowd of excited children. Kazudo watches as they swarm the carriage, all calling out Lute's name. She turns to him with a smile, asking him to wait just a moment. Our boy can only look on, a little confused by the detour. She steps out to greet her adoring fans who welcome her home. One of the kids proudly shows off a toy staff he made just for her. Lute praises his work, indulging his dreams of summoning dragons. Kazudo watches the scene unfold with a warm, knowing smile. He sees that even after saving the world, she's still the same Lute. But one little girl hangs back, her eyes full of shy admiration. Kazudo watches on, curious about the quiet interaction. Lute's attention is drawn to the girl hiding in the crowd. She approaches with a warm smile, asking if she needs something. The girl is completely flustered by the sudden attention, but she bravely holds out a small handmade bracelet. She explains that she made it just for Lute, and the hero's expression softens with genuine gratitude. She thanks the girl with a gentle pat on the head and promises to treasure the gift forever. Guess that's what being a hero of the people looks like. The little girl's face lights up with pure joy. Lute waves goodbye as the children finally head home. She returns to the carriage, her mood visibly lifted. Kazudo notes that she seems a little more like herself now. She agrees, admiring the simple gifts from her fans. But then she thanks him, catching Kazudo completely off guard. She explains that he was the one who noticed the shy girl in the crowd, and that without him, she would have missed the precious gift. She teases him for being so perceptive of others' feelings, and with that she declares that she's feeling much better. Kazuto can only offer a flustered, awkward smile. Lute just smirks, saying she knows exactly who she's dealing with. And with her good mood restored, she declares it's time to go. She announces their arrival at the royal castle of Rodomi. They make their way through the long, empty corridors. But Kazudo suddenly freezes in place. He stares at a pair of large, ornate doors, and a look of dawning horror crosses his face. Because this is the very room where he parted ways with his former party, Lute glances over, sensing his sudden unease. She tells him not to be so tense, explaining that everyone already knows about her foul mouth, and that she just wants them to get along on this journey. She announces her arrival and pushes open the doors, and inside his former comrades look up in surprise. The cat girl, Makura, seems deeply concerned. The winged mage, Phylline, looks on with a stern expression, and the elf mage, Curia, seems just as serious. Talk about a warm welcome. Kazudo scans the room asking where Romina is, but he already knows the answer. They've all forgotten him. But no one even spares him a second glance, and the reality of the curse hits him all over again. Lute cheerfully introduces him as the man from her letter. Makura sizes him up with a skeptical sniff. The others question if this is really the guy who beat her. He doesn't exactly look like a world beater, but Curia calmly points out that her dragon was in fact defeated, a technicality that Lute is clearly not happy to admit. Kazudo watches their familiar bickering unfold. He remembers all the times they used to argue just like this, and for a moment a bittersweet smile crosses his face. But their bickering is cut short by a new arrival. Romina enters the room, a picture of grace and poise, and Kazudo can only stare, his heart stopping in his chest. He can't even form a coherent thought. He forces himself to offer a formal greeting, but Lute immediately scolds him for being so stiff. Romina just laughs, amused by their dynamic. She tells him to relax and speak to her casually. Kazuto stammers out an agreement, completely flustered, and just then another familiar face joins the party. King Margles, the man who replaced him, makes a formal request. He explains that he's already had Kazuto's activities investigated. Kazuto is floored that the king himself would look into him. Margulies notes his impressive achievements for a C-rank adventurer, but he questions why Kazuto has never aimed for a higher rank. His gaze is sharp, searching for the truth behind the man's record. Kazuto knows he has to tread carefully with his answer. He explains that he prefers the stability of his current rank. A perfectly boring and safe response, because while B-rank quests offer more money, they also come with a much greater degree of danger. Margulies seems to accept his perfectly logical answer. But he has one more question for our boy. He asks why Kazuto has only ever worked solo. Kazuto explains that he's terrible at teamwork, and after much deliberation, decided going it alone was the only way. A very convenient and well-rehearsed excuse. The king listens, his expression unreadable. He thanks Kazuto for his honesty, but has one final question. He asks if Kazuto is absolutely certain he's not the lost namer. Kazuto's expression remains perfectly neutral, but inside he knows the truth he can never speak. He never wanted to admit he was the lost namer. He wanted to tell them he'd travel with them again, but revealing the truth now would only cause them pain. And if he joined them only to be cast out once more, he knows he wouldn't be able to bear it. So he confirms his lie, insisting he's better off this way. The king seems to accept his answer, for now. He thanks Kazuto for his cooperation. Guess the interrogation is over. But his expression suggests he's not entirely convinced. And Makura immediately objects, refusing to trust Kazuto with the quest. Phylline chimes in, agreeing with the sentiment. Curia admits he might have skill for a C rank, but it's not enough to face an enemy on par with the Demon King. Kazuto freezes, shocked to hear those words again. He asks how that's possible when the world is supposed to be at peace. But Lute cuts him off, suggesting it's better to show than tell. She directs his attention to Romina, who turns her back to them in the center of the room. Kazuto stares, completely bewildered by the sight, as Romina reveals a strange, dark marking spreading across her skin. A dark, corrupted crest spreads across her back. Kazuto can only stare, realizing it's some kind of curse. She explains it happened in the final moments of their battle, as she delivered the finishing blow to the Demon King, a memory of her final desperate attack. She had screamed that it was finally over, and with one last strike, his body was destroyed. But a fragment of his power shot out from the blast. The Demon King's final parting gift, talk about a sore loser, and it struck her before she even knew what was happening. She remembers striking the final blow, but the Demon King had one last trick up his sleeve. A shard of his power shot towards her, and it pierced her defenses with ease. He left her with a final damning curse, a promise that once it reached her heart, she would die a slow and agonizing death. Talk about a parting gift. The Demon King was gone, but his malice remained. And in that moment, she felt the first pang of pain. She collapsed, the weight of his curse settling in. The curse pulsed, a dark stain on her skin. She explains that the Demon King cursed her as he died. He used the last of his power to ensure her demise. And Kazuto is absolutely devastated by the news. Curia adds that they've all been searching for a cure, but their search has clearly been fruitless. The grim expressions of his former friends say it all. The king then asks Kazuto if he knows of the four spirit gods. The name echoes in his mind, completely foreign. Margulis explains they are godlike beings who guard powerful artifacts. He clarifies that these aren't just bedtime stories. Their next opponent is Dia, an ancient dragon, and only the sacred treasures they guard can break the curse. Romina admits that facing them will be a monumental task. Kazuto wonders if they can't just talk their way through it. Lute asks him why he'd even suggest that, because she's already cut all ties with her master. And Kazuto realizes with a jolt that Dia is Lute's master. He remembers her mentioning a falling out with her teacher, and that the gods won't act for the sake of one human. Kazuto can only mutter Lute's name, completely overwhelmed. The king explains that his royal duties prevent him from joining them, and Curia must stay behind to slow the curse's progression, which means the task of facing this new threat falls to Lute, Phylline, and Makura alone. But they all know that on their own, their power is not enough. Phylline explains that ideally, they need someone who can strengthen the party, and Kazuto realizes why they're searching for the lost namer. He finally understands the impossible situation they're in. They're facing a threat on par with the Demon King himself. He remembers how they fought through everything together, but now they're terrified to face a godlike dragon. No pressure. Phylline can barely hide her unease, and even Lute looks completely overwhelmed. Mikura tries to put on a brave face, while Curia can only watch in solemn silence. Kazudo takes in all of their despair. He can see how much this is breaking them, and he knows the power of the Lost Namer is their only hope. As Romina reminds them that her time is running out, the entire party can only stare, shocked by the revelation. Romina tells them there's no need to risk their lives for her, but she hesitates, her brave facade cracking, and she thanks them with a sad, gentle smile. She just wants to see them happy until the very end. But Mikura is absolutely seething with frustration. She grabs Romina, telling her to stop talking nonsense. Philene agrees, telling her to stop with the noble act. Even Curia screams her name, begging her to stop. But Romina's quiet resolve remains unshaken. But Lute grabs Romina's wrist, refusing to let her give up. She looks her friend in the eye, her own pain evident, but her expression is filled with an unshakable resolve. Romina can only stare, caught off guard by her intensity. Lute reminds her that she's not alone in this fight. She offers a small, reassuring smile, and tells her that she doesn't have to bear this burden by herself. Romina's eyes well up, touched by her friend's unwavering support. The others gather around, a silent promise to face this together. And watching from the sidelines, Kazudo finally understands. He looks at them with a practiced smile and politely declines the quest. He explains that in terms of skill, he's simply not a good match for them. Lute can only stare, completely stunned by his refusal. The others are just as shocked by his sudden decision. He turns to Lute, placing a hand on her shoulder, and apologizes for not being strong enough to help her. Well, that's one way to quit your new job. Lute is left completely speechless by his words, but she suddenly grabs his arm, refusing to let him go. The king steps in, gently pulling her back. He thanks Kazudo for coming all this way, essentially dismissing him. But Romina's expression softens with a hint of understanding. Kazudo turns back to face her one last time. He tells her to stop pretending to be strong. She stares, completely caught off guard by his directness. He tells her to admit when she's scared, and to cry in front of her friends when she needs to. Lute agrees, explaining that's what bonds are for. Kazudo smiles, adding that the goddess of bonds will be watching. He's basically an expert on the subject now. He tells her to believe in that power and turns to leave. Romina can only watch, his words echoing in her mind. He grits his teeth, forcing himself to walk away. But Romina stares after him, a strange word on her lips. She clutches her chest, overcome by a feeling she can't name. A strange, inexplicable sensation washes over her. Outside the castle gates, Lute sees him off. But as he turns to leave, she calls out his name. She asks if he's really going to abandon them like this. Meanwhile, Curia reveals the grim truth. Romina only has a month to live. Kazuto walks on, the name of the ancient dragon echoing in his mind. But Lute catches up to him, her expression pleading. He smiles, asking to speak with her alone before they part. They find a quiet spot on the castle balcony. Lute looks concerned, asking why he's suddenly so serious. But Kazudo knows this is his only chance to ask about Dia. He gets straight to the point, asking for the dragon's location. She reveals Dia resides in the Foz ruins north of the kingdom, a place he knows as a graveyard for S-rank adventurers. Sounds like a lovely vacation spot. Lute confirms it's a 10-day journey to a monster-filled labyrinth, a place Dia created by moving an entire mountain to protect the treasure. Kazudo can only smile, realizing how difficult this will be. Her expression shifts to one of dawning horror. As she realizes he's planning to go there alone, she tries to stop him, insisting it's too dangerous even for them. She admits that she's challenged Dia multiple times in the past, and every single time she failed to even land a scratch. She warns that the monsters in the labyrinth are on another level, especially the Dark Dragon, a notorious adventurer killer. She asks if he truly understands how difficult it is to even reach Dia, let alone for a single person, and a C-rank adventurer at that. Talk about a suicide mission. Lute can only stare, her voice barely a whisper, but Kazudo explains that he has to go alone. He repeats his old excuse about not being a team player. Lute is completely floored by his stubborn refusal, but his gaze is unwavering, his mind already made up. She grabs him, screaming that he's going to get himself killed. But their argument is cut short by the king's arrival. They both turn, surprised by his sudden appearance. Margulies offers to arrange lodging for Kazudo for the night, and suggests a place where he might gather some useful information. Kazudo offers a polite bow, accepting the king's hospitality, but Lute still looks desperate, asking if he's seeking help elsewhere. He calls out her name, trying to get her to listen. He places a reassuring hand on her shoulder, telling her he'll be fine. He tells her to find her own allies and face the challenge at full strength. Lute can only look up, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. He reminds her that their focus must be on finding the best way to save Romina. He's just a reckless traveler, drawn to the ruins out of simple curiosity. Yeah, that'll fool him. And with a final, confident wave, he turns to leave, leaving Lute and the king to watch him walk toward his impossible goal. Lute wonders why Kazudo would go to such lengths for them. But the king just smiles, offering a simple explanation. He says Kazuto has the eyes of someone with something to protect. He turns to Lute, suggesting she should understand that feeling. His words seem to strike a chord with her, and she closes her eyes, a silent understanding passing between them. They can only watch as he walks away from the castle. The next day, Kazudo begins his preparations. He walks through the streets, loaded down with gear. That's a lot of stuff for a simple curiosity trip. He checks his list, making sure he's ready for the road ahead. He goes over his list, stocking up on healing stones. He's greeted by a cheerful shopkeeper. The vendor notes his heavy pack, asking where he's headed. The man snaps his fingers, having the perfect idea. He recommends a special deal on mana stones for parties. Kazudo looks a little uncomfortable at the suggestion. He explains he's going solo, much to the shopkeeper's disbelief. The vendor warns him that the area is still incredibly dangerous. He suggests that Kazudo should really find some companions, but Kazudo can't bear the thought of seeing their sad faces again. He just offers a strained smile, repeating his well-worn excuse. The shopkeeper calls him a lone wolf, handing over a little something extra. A heavy pouch is pressed into his hand. Kazuto is stunned by the sheer generosity of the gift. The man tells him it's for when he finally finds companions. A quiet, bittersweet smile is his only reply. He thanks the shopkeeper for his kindness. Back in his room, he lays out all his new gear. He figures he's ready, hoping a spell can lighten the massive load. But just as he's finishing up, a voice calls out from behind. The shopkeeper points, offering him a ride in his carriage. He's heading to the northern mountains and warns of the harsh weather. He recalls his own time there, a difficult job with thin air and monsters. Kazuto can only imagine how tough that must have been. But the man says he endured it all because he had his companions. The word hits Kazudo hard, a single tear escaping his eye. He asks the man if he wasn't terrified out there. The shopkeeper just smiles, saying fear is a liar. Easy for him to say. He then opens a small locket, showing Kazuto his secret. A picture of his family, the people he had to protect. The shopkeeper waves him off, telling him not to stay out too late. Kazudo offers a final wave as the door closes behind him. And with the man's words echoing in his mind, his resolve hardens. He makes his way to the training grounds, the sounds of battle filling the air. He finds himself alone in the center of a massive arena. He shivers in the cold night air, preparing for what's to come. His expression is grim, focused on the impossible task ahead. He grips his sword, the familiar weight a small comfort. He takes a deep, steadying breath and imagines his opponent, the legendary Dark Dragon. Time for a little practice run. But his mind is haunted by a vision of Romina's death. His blade falters, the practice session ruined. He admits that fear is clouding his concentration. A single tear falls as his power begins to stir. He remembers telling her to rely on her friends. But now he finds himself completely alone. He knows there's no turning back from this path. He tries to put on a brave face, but the sweat tells a different story. His hands tremble, raw from the brutal training. But the memory of her smile is all the motivation he needs. He tries to smile through the pain, telling himself he's here now. But a familiar voice cuts through the silence, asking if he's crying. He turns, surprised to see Lute standing there, and her presence only amplifies his fear, because he can't get the image of Romina out of his head. He steels his resolve, knowing he must face Dia to save her. But the thought of doing it all alone is terrifying. He wonders why his hands won't stop shaking. The scene shifts as another adventurer tries to recruit him for a quest. He offers to split the reward, trying to tempt Kazudo into a party. But Kazudo simply turns him down, insisting he'll go it alone. Just then, a large hand snatches the quest right out of his grasp. A burly adventurer scoffs, saying a C rank is far too weak for this job. Kazudo just gives him a tired, unimpressed look. The man rallies his own party, declaring they'll be the ones to take the quest. And his group cheers, ready to head out immediately. Kazudo simply turns and walks away from the commotion. Later he's seen in the field, having completed another quest on his own. But he suddenly spots a familiar group in the distance. It's the same adventurers from the guild, now screaming as a massive beast bears down on them. Talk about instant karma. They scream that their magic is useless against the S-rank beast. The creature swats away their attacks with ease, and the burly leader can only stare in abject terror. But a sudden flash of steel cuts through the air. As Kazudo steps in to block the monster's attack, he holds his ground with a calm, steady gaze. The other adventurers immediately turn and flee. So much for teamwork. The leader thanks him for the save, as Kazudo says they should help each other. He glances down at the pouch from the kind shopkeeper, and the adventurer looks at him, a question on his lips. The man tells him he has the potential to aim higher. He notes that defeating a monster like that alone is proof of his skill. So he asks the million-dollar question, why doesn't he join a party? Kazudo can only offer a quiet, pained smile. He thinks that if he were stronger, things wouldn't have ended this way. He remembers another voice telling him to just leave. His hands still tremble with the weight of his failures. He feels like he hasn't changed at all, still just a coward. But he grits his teeth, determined that this time will be different. Because this time, he has Romina's smile to protect. But a familiar voice calls out his name, stopping him cold. He turns to see Romina walking toward him through the dark corridor. She admits that she heard where he was from Lute and snuck out to see him. Kazudo can only blame Lute for her meddling. So much for keeping a low profile. He gently turns her around, insisting she go back for her own safety. But she just gives him a sad, pouty look. She reminds him of the advice he gave her back in the throne room, the words he spoke about crying when she needed to. She explains that his kindness is what gave her the courage to come here, and Kazuto is left completely speechless by her confession. He reminds her that he told her to rely on her friends, not him, but she counters that his words were clearly meant for her. She looks him in the eye, declaring that she considers him a comrade, and she offers him a warm, genuine smile. Kazuto is completely stunned by her declaration. He tries to push her away, completely flustered by her closeness. Personal space is a foreign concept to heroes, apparently, but she just looks down, lost in her own thoughts. She then admits that she feels like she's missing a memory. Kazudo's blood runs cold at her words. She continues, saying it's a memory of a certain person, a person who traveled with them and gave them courage. She admits that she wants to meet that person again, and that this is her one true wish. But her hope is immediately followed by doubt, because she knows this curse might make that wish impossible. She recalls telling everyone that she was fine, but admits she's more afraid of her wish not coming true than of death itself. Talk about having your priorities straight. Kazudo can only tell her that everything will be okay. She looks up at him, her resolve starting to crumble, and our boy is feeling the pressure of her impossible hope. He wonders if Romina somehow remembers him, if deep in her heart, some part of him remains, and that she's been wanting to see him all this time. His expression hardens with a newfound purpose. He clenches his fist, remembering how he always felt like a burden. She looks at him, his name on her lips, and asks why he won't fight alongside Lute and the others. Her gaze is intense, demanding a real answer. His mind flashes back to another party, another rejection, and the false hope that this time would be different. He begins to explain his reasoning. He tells her that he can't be their comrade because he doesn't want to be a burden to them again. Romina can only listen in confused silence, but a memory surfaces of a promise made under the stars, and the weight of that forgotten moment hits her hard. Kazudo suggests it's time for her to return to the castle. She agrees, but the curse suddenly flares to life, and she collapses before he can even react. Well, this just got complicated. He screams her name, his worst fears realized. Romina lies on the ground, gasping for breath. Back at the castle, Lute senses that something is terribly wrong. She frantically wonders where Romina could have gone. The others confirm she's nowhere to be found in the castle. Lute's mind races, trying to piece together the clues. She realizes Romina might have gone to the training grounds. Makura is stunned, demanding to know why she'd go there. Lute admits that Romina had asked where Kazudo was staying. The others are horrified, realizing she went to find him alone. Talk about a terrible time for a secret meeting, and Curia can only blame herself for the unfolding disaster. She blames herself for ever looking away, but a comforting hand rests on her shoulder. Her friends insist that this isn't her fault. Makura shouts that they need to get to the training grounds. Her eyes burn with a fierce, protective light. They arrive and demand to know who's there, and Kazudo turns, carrying an unconscious Romina on his back. She's crying in her sleep, and our boy is officially in over his head. Filene rushes forward, asking what happened to their leader. He just tells them they need to find her a place to rest, now. Makura quickly takes charge, leading them to a room. She throws open the door without a second's hesitation. She turns to Curia, asking her to take care of Romina. Curia summons a small spirit, asking for its aid. They all watch as the spirit begins its healing work. The little creature hovers over Romina, trying to ease her pain. Lute can only watch, her expression filled with dread, and slowly Romina's breathing begins to stabilize. The others look on, a heavy silence filling the room, but Makura turns on Kazuto, demanding to know why Romina went to see him. Kazuto can only admit that he doesn't know. Lute suggests they just ask her when she wakes up. A great plan for people who aren't currently panicking. But Makura's glare says she's not waiting that long. She demands to know what his true objective is. But their argument is cut short by Romina's pained breathing. Kazudo's eyes widen as he realizes what's happening. Curia rushes forward, her hands glowing with healing energy. She cries out that the curse is accelerating. Romina's face contorts in agony, the curse spreading rapidly. Curia desperately begs her spirit to lend her its strength. He begs Curia to let him try something. He suddenly pulls out a book, shocking everyone in the room. He opens the tome, revealing a complex magical seal, and begins to chant, calling upon Ash, the goddess of bonds, leaving Curia completely stunned by his words. The book in his hands erupts with a brilliant, holy light. Curia recognizes the spell, her eyes wide with horror. It's a forbidden magic that converts life force into power, a technique that is literally shaving away Kazudo's own life. Talk about a high-stakes gamble, but he grits his teeth, willing to pay any price to save her. He offers his own life force as a catalyst for the spell, and with a final roar, he commands the curse to be destroyed. The others can only watch as he pours his energy into Romina. A strange sound echoes from outside the room. Romina groans, the dark magic fighting back against the light. Curia can't believe what she's seeing, but slowly, the pained expression on Romina's face begins to soften into a peaceful slumber. Kazudo holds his ground, the forbidden magic still flowing, and his former comrades are left completely speechless by his sacrifice. Curia can only watch, horrified by his reckless sacrifice. The strain is immense, the pain etched on Kazudo's face. But he refuses to stop, pushing through the agony. She knows he's already pushed far beyond his limits. He's literally burning away his own life to save Romina. The curse fights back, a torrent of dark, crackling energy. But Kazudo draws it out, taking the corruption into himself. The backlash is immediate and excruciating. The dark power threatens to consume him completely, but he channels the last of his light directly into her. He grits his teeth, sweat pouring down his face. He's focused on one thing and one thing only: healing Romina. Curia admits she never had this kind of resolve. He pushes through the agony, his body screaming in protest, and she wonders if this man is just like the Kazudo she's forgotten. The others can only watch as he attempts the impossible. No pressure, kid. But the curse he's drawing out begins to consume his own hand. And yet, Romina's pained expression finally begins to ease. He roars, demanding more power, more life force to burn. But Curia grabs him, trying to stop him before he goes too far. She begs him to stop, insisting he can't go any further. She warns him that if he continues, he'll surely die. Curia dismisses her own spirits, telling them it's all right now. Kazudo can only pant, completely drained from the ordeal. Makura stares, questioning who this man truly is. He wonders how a C-rank like him could even use spirit magic. But Feline calls out, telling him to wait. He just offers a tired, knowing smile over his shoulder, leaving his former comrades completely stunned by his actions. His heavy breathing echoes as he walks away down the empty hall. His body aches, every breath a struggle, but a small, pained smile appears. Because he knows that Romina is safe. He remembers the moment she collapsed in his arms. The terror of seeing her so helpless. He admits that his legs were shaking with fear. But now he vows to show her the future she deserves. Nothing like a near-death experience to boost your motivation. Back in the room, Romina sleeps peacefully. Curia confirms that her condition has stabilized, and the others decide it's time to let her rest. Back in the hallway, a decision is being made. Curia looks on with a heavy heart. She admits that she wants to go with them, but the party is now one member short. She explains that she must stay behind to watch over Romina, and so she has a proposal. She asks them to take Kazudo in her place. Nothing like deciding a guy's future for him. Lute's expression hardens with conviction. She knows he'll be the strength they need to save their friend. Meanwhile, Kazudo is completely oblivious, lost in an exhausted sleep. Curia stands vigil over Romina's bedside. She tells the others that Kazuto is their only hope now, but she can't understand why she's pushing for this. Her mind flashes back to that moment, when Kazudo was on the brink of death to save their friend, but her quiet reflection is shattered as Romina bolts upright. She tries to get out of bed, insisting she has to go. She tells Curia there's something she must say to Kazuto. Lute's expression hardens with a sudden resolve, and she declares that she will be the one to go. The next morning, a new day begins, and Kazudo is already in a full-blown panic. He knows Romina doesn't have much time left. He has to accept this power and prepare to leave. But a nagging feeling tells him something is off. He can't shake the feeling they're coming for him, especially after the look Curia gave him last night. He tries to shake it off, but the feeling persists. For now, he just needs to grab his gear and go. But Curia is already there, blocking his path. He opens the door, completely stunned by who he finds on the other side. He can only ask why Curia is standing in his doorway. He tries to maintain some formality, but she's clearly not interested. She asks how long he plans on staying in the capital. He stammers that he's planning to leave tomorrow. She asks if he's preparing today, leaving him completely baffled. And then she offers to help him get ready. She turns, telling him to hurry up and get going. Talk about mixed signals. Kazudo demands to know what her real objective is, but she admits to herself that there must be a reason for her sudden visit. Her expression is unreadable, her motives a complete mystery, and Kazudo is left completely bewildered by her actions. He has absolutely no idea what she's thinking, and so he follows her through the streets of the capital. Our boy is understandably a little on edge. He asks if it's really okay for her to be out in the open like this, but she explains that since she's always in the castle, few people know her face. The oblivious townspeople seem to prove her point. Kazuto can only accept her surprisingly logical explanation because she's been by Romina's side, completely dedicated to her treatment. He asks her how Romina is doing today. Curia just gives him a flat, unimpressed look. She tells him to stop being so formal with her. Kazudo is a little flustered by her bluntness. She reassures him that Romina is doing all right. In fact, she says it's all thanks to him. Our boy is understandably confused by her words. She explains that the dark crest on Romina's back has actually shrunk. His forbidden magic didn't just stabilize her, it bought her more time. Talk about a life-saving side effect. And that news seems to harden his resolve. She offers him a rare, genuine smile, but admits it's only a small improvement. He clenches his fist, his resolve renewed, and he can only offer a relieved smile in return. Curia seems a little surprised by his simple acceptance, and so their awkward shopping trip begins. Kazudo tries to make some small talk. As Curia stops to look at a flower shop, he comments on their beauty, but she just walks on, leaving him to trail behind her in silence. He can only watch her, trying to understand her motives. They continue their walk through the quiet streets. Curia finally asks if he's heading to the northern mountains. He offers a weak smile, saying he found a good quest. He insists he has to hurry before another adventurer snags it. A likely story, but Curia's expression says she's not buying it for a second. She just stares, her silence more telling than any words. She finally states that he's going on this journey for Romina, and that he's planning to do it all alone. Kazudo is stunned, asking if she thinks he's wrong. Kazudo's expression remains grim and unreadable. He can't find the words to respond to her directness. Curia takes a small, deliberate step forward and offers him a deep, respectful bow. She thanks him for everything he did to save Romina. Kazudo is completely taken aback by her gratitude. He insists that he's the one who should be thanking her, admitting that if she hadn't stopped him, he might have destroyed himself. But she simply says that she considers him a lifesaver. Kazudo can only offer a grateful smile, thanking her by name. Curia seems a little surprised by his formal tone, and she suddenly pulls him along, much to his confusion. She presents him with a bouquet of white flowers. He asks why, figuring she's been cooped up in her room all day. She explains she thought they might bring a little color to his recovery. She holds the gift, her gaze still a little uncertain, but she offers a small, shy smile confirming her good intentions. Kazudo notes that it's getting late and she should probably return, but she calls out his name, stopping him in his tracks. She explains that she has a message for him from Romina. Kazudo listens, his expression unreadable. She relays Romina's words, a promise to never forget the night sky they shared. The message hits him like a physical blow. He's completely stunned into silence. He can only think of Romina's name, the weight of her memory crashing down. Curia glances at a nearby clock, her task complete. She announces that her mission is over and turns to leave. Talk about an abrupt exit. She offers a quiet, knowing, "See you later." And with that, she walks away without another word. Kazudo smiles, realizing she came all this way just to deliver that one message. He admits he was a little too on edge with her, but he remembers the usually stoic Curia and her simple, heartfelt words of gratitude. He can only offer a small, embarrassed smile, but her kindness has only strengthened his resolve. His destination is set, the Fa's ruins to the north, and he vows that the spirit god Dia will be waiting for him. Back at the castle, Curia has finally returned. Filene immediately asks where she's been all this time, but Curia just walks past, her mission clearly accomplished. Guess girl talk can wait. She tells them she wants to speak in private. Filene sighs, used to her friend's secretive nature, but Curia insists there's just one thing they need to know. She reveals that Kazudo is leaving town tomorrow, and with that, the group heads down the corridor. She leaves the next move entirely in their hands. The next morning, a carriage departs from the capital. Lute watches from a balcony, noting Kazudo left at dawn. She turns to the others, asking if they're ready to go too. Makura grins, eager to follow him on his journey. He rides in silence, the grim deadline echoing in his mind. He's leaving Rodomi to save her, and he's doing it alone. His journey takes him into the harsh, unforgiving north. The driver takes him as far as he can, wishing him well. He spots a bridge, the only path to the Foz ruins. But as he steps forward, he finds his path is blocked. The bridge has been completely destroyed. He knows a detour will cost him precious time, but his travel plans are suddenly interrupted by a pair of very unfriendly-looking local fish. He draws his blade, deflecting the swarm with a single swift motion. He realizes they're man-eating fish, and they're not happy to see him. He figures their aggression is due to spawning season, and he wonders if these creatures are what destroyed the bridge. But he knows this bridge is too well-traveled to be brought down so easily. His investigation is cut short by a massive, shadowy figure looming behind him. Meanwhile, a familiar carriage barrels down the road in his direction. Inside, the others question Lute for letting Kazudo go off on his own, but she just smiles, assuring them she has a plan. Her confident moment is cut short as someone calls out her name, and the voice belongs to Romina, looking surprisingly formal. She tells a stunned Lute that she heard about her journey with Kazudo, and with a pained expression, she asks for a favor. She holds out a small, rolled-up bundle, asking her to deliver it to Kazudo on her behalf. Lute can only stare, completely baffled by the request. But Romina just offers a gentle, knowing smile. The others look on, just as confused by the strange gift. Lute explains that this is a sign of Romina's absolute trust in him, a sentiment the rest of the party clearly doesn't share just yet. But Makura's eyes suddenly widen in shock. Back at the bridge, Kazudo grits his teeth, locked in a desperate battle. A massive, watery beast lunges at him with a piercing beak. He unleashes a powerful slash of his own, and the creature dissolves into a shower of droplets. But the watery monster immediately begins to reform. Kazudo realizes it can regenerate instantly. Well, this is just fantastic. He quickly analyzes the creature, spotting its true weakness. A dark spherical core pulses within its fluid body. He dodges another attack, preparing to strike at its heart. He realizes the smaller fish are just as dangerous as the main beast, and he knows he can't afford to waste a single second here. He decides to try freezing the water with a single wide slash. His reflection stares back from the blade, a moment of calm focus. But the attack just splashes back, completely ineffective. He realizes ice and lightning are useless, and he's taking damage. So if cold doesn't work, he'll just have to turn up the heat. He unleashes a powerful blast of fire. The attack connects, striking the creature's core dead on, and the beast finally dissolves into nothing. But Kazudo grits his teeth, frustrated by the delay. He knows his own power isn't enough to get through this quickly, but with no other choice, he prepares to press on, until a familiar voice calls out from behind him, and a massive blast of magic clears the path in an instant. His former comrades have arrived, and they brought their own bridge. Talk about convenient. Kazudo can only stare, completely stunned by their arrival. Lute, Feline, and Makura stand there, looking entirely too pleased with themselves. Makura immediately starts teasing him for being a C rank. Feline, however, offers a sincere apology for their meddling. Feline admits that she's been far too harsh with him. Kazudo is completely taken aback by her apology. She explains that watching him risk his life for Romina made her realize she wasn't taking this seriously enough. He can only listen, stunned by her confession. Makura then chimes in, admitting she was wrong too. She says she had no right to lash out at him like she did, because seeing his unwavering resolve by Romina's bedside made her realize she had no right to be afraid. Kazudo can only stare as their words sink in. Kazudo clenches his fist, his resolve hardening. Lute explains that they can't afford to waste any more time. They all share the same desire to save Romina, and that 4 of them can do it much faster than 1. It's just simple math, really. Kazudo can only listen to their heartfelt plea. He turns and offers a quiet thank you for their support. But his expression shifts, a clear refusal on his lips. He insists that he has to go on this journey alone. The girls are completely stunned by his stubbornness. Lute can only say his name, her voice filled with disbelief. But Lute pushes past his refusal, holding out the bundle from Romina. Kazudo takes it, his eyes widening in disbelief. She explains that it's a gift from their leader, and his expression hardens with a dawning realization. He unwraps it to find the very sword Romina used to wield. A message from her, asking him to fight as if she were by his side. Lute confirms that this is Romina's way of joining the battle. A memory of her bright, unwavering smile flashes through his mind. He grips the hilt, the weight of her trust settling in his hands. Lute adds that Curia also sent a message, because apparently he's the party's new postal service. A message to return the bracelet to her in person. Lute teases him, noting how rare a gesture that is from Curia. He looks at the gifts, the weight of their faith finally sinking in. And in that moment, all his hesitation vanishes. He holds the sword and the bracelet, a promise to them all, and a small, determined smile crosses his face. He turns, telling them he'll go on ahead. The girls watch him go, their expressions filled with concern. He tells them they need to hurry, and they stand ready, a true party once more. But Kazudo is still insisting he won't be joining their party, a decision the girls have unanimously decided to ignore. He knows he has to do this to save Romina and fulfill his promise. And together they vow to defeat the spirit god, Dia. Their journey begins with a training simulation against a massive dragon. Makura boasts that with Kazudo around, even a level 50 dragon is easy. Lute immediately demands they bring on a level 100 beast. Someone's getting a little carried away. But Feline reminds them they need to hurry and wrap up for the day. She admits that with Kazuto as their support, their combat techniques have improved on a whole other level. Feline admits she was worried about their teamwork, but for now, they're fighting without any problems. She reflects on their daily battles with the simulated dragons. But a seed of doubt has clearly taken root. She admits that as they are now, she doesn't believe they can defeat the real Dia. The others can only stare, completely blindsided by her sudden pessimism. Makura grabs her, demanding to know what's gotten into her. Feline turns to Lute, asking for her honest opinion on the matter, and Lute agrees that with their current strategy, victory is far from certain. Makura is absolutely furious, demanding to know why they're suddenly so doubtful. Kazudo timidly raises a hand, asking if he can ask a question. He asks if they know what kind of attacks Dia uses. Lute explains that her master uses the same dragon summoning arts as her, but Dia can summon multiple, far more powerful dragons at once. Kazudo is stunned, admitting he thought Dia was the dragon. Lute adds that Dia also uses a troublesome technique called dragon martial arts, a skill that lets the user fight while cloaked in a dragon's power. And with both abilities, Dia is on par with the Demon King himself. So, no big deal. Feline admits that if that's true, they don't stand a chance. But Makura insists they can just rush Dia down before the summons. Lute smirks, explaining that the martial arts are far too fast to counter. Lute explains that Dia can change abilities based on the dragon she summons. Kazudo realizes it's less like magic and more like a combat style. The grim reality of the situation begins to sink in for Makura. Feline wonders how they can possibly fight an opponent like that. But Makura insists they just have to find a weakness, earning a jab from Lute for her simple approach. The cat girl immediately flies into a rage at the comment. Kazudo calmly asks if a weakness even exists. Lute admits that Dia has practically none, and they're at a numbers disadvantage. Because if Dia summons a horde of dragons, they'll be completely overwhelmed, and the entire party is left completely stumped. Well, this is going great. Kazudo listens, his expression unreadable. Feline admits that their opponent is simply too strong. She explains that even if they find a weakness, it might not be enough to guarantee their victory, and she can't shake the feeling that they're walking into a trap. Kazudo can only say her name, seeing her despair. The entire party is lost in a sea of doubt. Makura complains that all this thinking is giving her a stomach ache. But Kazuto just offers a strained smile, having an idea. He declares that it's time for them to eat, because nothing solves an existential crisis like a good meal. He presents them with a simple, warm meal, and hands out a bowl to each of his companions. But Feline's expression is still clouded with doubt. Kazudo just offers a knowing, gentle smile. She admits that just thinking about Dia's power is overwhelming. He tells her that's exactly why they need to eat. His simple logic seems to cut through her anxiety, and so they eat together in a comfortable silence. She takes a tentative bite of the soup, and her tense expression finally begins to soften. Guess his cooking skill is S rank. She admits that the soup is, in fact, delicious. And Kazudo brings out the main course, a steak he's been looking forward to. But Feline suddenly stops him in his tracks. She insists he eat something else before the main dish. She explains that the granita will reset his palate. Apparently, tactical eating is a thing now. He realizes it will only make the steak taste even better. He looks down at the simple dish in his hands, and as he takes a bite, the word reset clicks in his mind. He remembers what Lute said about Dia changing abilities with each dragon, and he turns to her, a new strategy finally taking shape. He asks if Dia has ever fought without switching between her dragons. Lute admits she's only ever seen her master use the power of a single dragon. He presses further, asking how long it takes her to switch abilities. She reveals there's a small window, a gap of 3 to 4 seconds. And in that tiny detail, Kazudo sees their path to victory. A confident smile spreads across his face. He's found their opening. Feline seems to understand, acknowledging his line of thinking. But the others can only stare. completely lost by his sudden confidence. He asks if the dark dragon in the ruins uses the same arts as Dia. Lute confirms that it's a far weaker version of her master's power, and that the dark dragon can use it too, which makes the ruins the perfect training ground. Kazudo declares that they'll test his new strategy there. The others are completely lost by his sudden confidence. He just smiles, asking them to listen to his plan. It all started with a simple bowl of soup, and as he explains, they finally begin to understand. He lays out the strategy he came up with. Lute admits that his idea is actually quite interesting, but Feline can't shake a feeling of unease about the whole thing. Makura scolds him, saying his gentle moves will never work. She lunges forward, ready to show him how it's done. Her attack is so fast it sends his dagger flying, but he dodges, leaving her completely off balance, and he calmly grabs her by the tail. Well, that's one way to stop a cat girl. Makura can only stare, completely shocked by the counter. He uses her own momentum to flip her through the air, and slams her to the ground, ending the spar in an instant. The sound of the impact echoes through the training grounds, as a voice calls out, telling them that's enough for today. Feline calls an end to the session, noting the sun is setting. But Makura is clearly not satisfied, still itching for a fight. As they walk, the others note how rare it is to see her so fired up. She impatiently tells them to hurry up and get moving. But Feline can't shake a feeling of deep unease. She wonders if Makura is hiding the same anxiety she feels. Lute calls out to Kazudo, who apologizes for dropping his weapon. They soon find a place to rest for the night, and discover a hidden hot spring nearby. Talk about a lucky find. Makura is delighted to find the water is warm. Feline explains that King Margulies has already given them his blessing. Lute tells Kazudo to go ahead and use the spring first, but he just smiles, insisting the three of them should relax. He turns away, saying he's just going for a walk. Feline watches him go with a thoughtful expression. Later that night, she finds herself thinking about him. In the hot spring, the girls discuss their strange new companion. Makura admits that while he's weird, he's not a bad guy. The others can only agree with her assessment. Feline notes he's willing to risk his life for them, calling him the ultimate good person, a title that comes with absolutely no prize money. Lute muses that there must be a reason for his strange behavior. Makura complains that he's annoying, but Lute knows he's their key to victory. Feline admits that it was Kazuto who gave them the resolve to fight, and the others can't help but agree with her. But they wonder why someone so capable has always been alone. Makura points out that he seems like he could fit in with any party. Feline can only agree, lost in her own thoughts. She worries that once their journey with him is over, he'll part ways with them and never join another party again. And Lute has a sinking feeling that she's absolutely right. Makura and Lute share a quiet, thoughtful moment. As Feline reflects on their strange new reality, Makura wishes that Romina and Curia could be here with them. The thought seems to make Feline a little emotional. Or maybe she's just overheated as she suddenly bolts upright. Talk about a mood killer. Meanwhile, Kazudo is hard at work planning their next move. But the exhaustion is clearly getting to him. He knows they only have one shot at this, and he has to make it count. The pressure is immense, every second a race against time. Because he knows that even now, Romina is fighting for her life. He rubs his eyes, the exhaustion finally catching up to him. He decides to take a break and head to the hot spring. He makes his way to the secluded spot they found earlier. The path is dark and a little unnerving, but he finally arrives at the moonlit spring. He sinks into the water, reflecting on how he would have been here alone. But now he has them by his side and it makes all the difference. Meanwhile, Feline wonders where he could have gone so late. His quiet moment is suddenly interrupted by a familiar voice. And Feline is clearly not happy to have found him like this. Talk about an awkward encounter. Philine's voice cuts through the night, scolding him for staying out so late. She appears at his door, explaining she couldn't sleep and saw his light on. Kazudo insists he's the one who should be apologizing. He asks why she was awake at this hour. The tension in the room is palpable as she sees his scattered notes. He admits with a strained smile that he couldn't sleep either. Feline just watches him, her gaze unreadable. The weight of their mission is clearly etched on his face. She simply offers him a quiet, heartfelt thank you. The next day, she admits to the others that Kazudo's plan is their only hope. She knows Lute and Makura feel the same way, even if they don't show it. Their plan is simple: defeat the Dark Dragon first, and use that momentum to take down Dia. She offers him a drink, telling him it's going to be okay. She insists that if they work together, they can't possibly fail. And with a newfound confidence, she vows they will save Romina. Kazudo is completely taken aback by her words. His own hand tightens around his cup, and he offers a quiet, determined agreement. Guess the pep talk worked. Their silent promise hangs in the air between them. She's glad they had this chance to talk alone. And with a final smile, she tells him they'll try again tomorrow. Kazudo can only offer a quiet goodnight in return. A fleeting memory of a past promise flashes through his mind. He wonders if his anxiety was really that obvious. He decides it's time to get some proper rest. But Phylline is still awake, her own thoughts weighing heavily on her, as the shadow of the coming battle looms large in their minds.